We've all done it, right? You drag a file to the trash, you hit empty, and you get that little bit of satisfaction. Clean computer, clean slate. But have you ever stopped to think about what really just happened? Where did that file actually go? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on your computer's storage and find out. Because the answer is completely different depending on whether you have an old-school hard drive or a modern solid-state drive.
It seems like such a simple question, doesn't it? But honestly, the answer is a game changer. That single click starts a completely different chain of events inside your machine. And, understanding that difference is everything when it comes to data security, data recovery, and just appreciating the incredible engineering inside the computers we use every single day. So let's start by winding the clock back a bit to the classic spinning hard drive.
All right, first up, the original gangster of storage, the hard disk drive, or HDD. For decades, this was the standard, and its whole method for remembering your data is, well, it's beautifully mechanical. Okay, so if you were to crack one of these open, this is what you'd see. You've got these spinning disks, they're called platters, and they're coated in a magnetic material. Then there's this actuator arm with a tiny little head on the end that just zips back and forth across those platters while they're spinning at thousands of RPM. Seriously, think of it like a tiny, super fast, incredibly precise record player, just writing and reading your data with magnets. So what happens when you delete a file on one of these? Well, here's the twist. The drive doesn't actually erase anything. No. Instead, it just deletes the pointer to that data. It's just like taking the index card out of an old library card catalog. The book itself, it's still sitting right there on the shelf, totally intact, just invisible to your computer. It just waits there until some new data happens to get written over that exact spot. The drive is really just a passive box. It doesn't clean up after itself, which is exactly why data recovery from an HDD is so often possible. Okay, now let's jump to the modern world, to the solid-state drive, or SSD. These things have zero moving parts. They work on a totally different principle, and this is where the story of your deleted data just takes a massive turn. And just look at that. No spinning platters, no zippy arms, nothing moves. An SSD is basically a circuit board packed with flash memory chips, and that lack of moving parts is the whole revolution right there. Because it's all electronic, it's way faster, it's tougher, and it uses less power.
So, to put them side by side, HDDs are these mechanical marvels, but because they have all those moving parts, they're just naturally slower and more fragile. SSDs, on the other hand, are pure electronics, which gives them this huge leg up in speed and durability. But the biggest difference, it isn't just physical. It's about intelligence. This quote from a research paper on this stuff just nails it. An HDD is, like we said, a passive storage box. It does what it's told, and that's it. But an SSD, it's an active system. It is constantly doing things in the background, managing your data, making decisions that you are never, ever aware of. And this right here is the absolute star of the show, the SSD memory controller. The best way to think of it is as the drive's own little dedicated brain. Its job is to juggle everything to maximize performance, and, maybe most importantly, to manage the lifespan of the memory chips. And it's this little brain that completely changes what the word delete actually means. So how does this brain actively forget your data? Well, it uses a team of 3 really powerful background processes. Let's break them down: wear leveling, trim, and garbage collection. Okay, first up, wear leveling. See, every single memory cell on an SSD can only be written to a limited number of times before it wears out. So if your computer just kept writing to the same spot over and over again, that one spot would die while the rest of the drive was still perfectly fine. Wear leveling is the controller's smart strategy to spread the love, to make sure all the cells get used evenly and age at the same rate. I mean, you can see it right here in the chart. Without wear leveling, you get these huge, damaging spikes in wear on just a few parts of the memory. With it, though, everything is spread out nice and even, which drastically extends the life of the entire drive. It's basically a built-in survival instinct. Next is trim. Now, this is the crucial messenger in the whole operation. When you delete a file, your operating system, whether it's Windows or Mac OS, sends a trim command to the SSD's brain. It's basically a little heads up that says, hey, just so you know, the data in these specific blocks, the user doesn't need it anymore. You're free to wipe it clean whenever you get a chance. And that brings us to garbage collection. This is the SSD's own personal cleanup crew. It works in the background, usually when you're not doing much, and it goes looking for those blocks that trim marked for deletion. Now, because of how flash memory works, it first has to copy any still valid data out of a block, move it somewhere else, and then it can completely erase the entire block, making it fresh and ready for new data.
So, putting it all together, the whole sequence goes like this. You hit delete, the OS sends the trim command. The controller marks those data blocks for death, basically. And then, when it has a free moment, the garbage collection process comes along and wipes them clean for good. It's not just forgetting where the file is, it is an active, deliberate system for destroying that data to keep the drive running fast.
Okay, so a lot of tech talk, we get it. But what are the real-world consequences? Why does this actually matter to you? This is where it gets really practical. Research on this is pretty clear. Once you delete a file on an SSD that has trim enabled, and by the way, that's the default on pretty much every modern computer, you can expect that at least 95 to 100% of that data is gone forever, and almost instantly. Trying to recover it becomes next to impossible. And this creates this really fascinating trade-off. On the one hand, it's a massive win for your personal security. If you delete sensitive financial documents or private files, you can be very confident that they are truly permanently gone. But the flip side is, if you accidentally delete those priceless family photos, there's probably no going back. There's no undo button. And for people in digital forensics or data recovery, this technology is a nightmare. The evidence they're looking for might have been automatically shredded by the drive itself before they ever got to it. So this all leads us to a pretty interesting final thought. In our quest to make our storage faster, more efficient, and last longer, we have, by necessity, also made our deleted data more temporary, more ephemeral. The very intelligence that gives an SSD all of its power also guarantees that when something is gone, it is really truly gone. Something to think about the next time you empty that trash can.